Hey guys, real quick before we get into the video, make sure you like this video. This is my second channel. My first channel is Christian Robertson. I would appreciate if you guys would go over there and hit subscribe real quick, but also subscribe to this channel as well. I'm going to be posting all my podcasts, all my podcast clips, a lot of other content that I don't want to post on the other channel. I'm leaving that exclusively for vlogs. So please like the video if you like the video, if you like the interview. Go watch some more if you like them, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Also, if you do like the video, leave a comment down below. Let us know that you like it. That way YouTube also puts it out there and shows the other audiences and stuff that, hey, this is a channel worth watching. So I appreciate you guys so much. I could not do it without you guys. I want to keep putting out videos, so if you could go do that, that would be amazing. Thank you so much.
What's going on, buddy?
Hey, what's up, Christian? How are you, man?
I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you doing? Doing good, man. Just made one last trip to Lowe's to get some home repair stuff, before the lockdown. So just got back from that.
Gotcha. How's oh crap, there's like a reverb. Sorry.
Oh, you're right.
One second. Let me figure this out.
Yeah, you're good.
How is it out there? Like in Ohio, because I know Oregon, everything's kind of locked down, and California's locked down. Is Ohio?
Yeah, so they just the governor, I think, has been pretty proactive. I mean, our gym shut down a week ago, and then as of today, I think at midnight, they're shutting down all what's considered non-essential businesses. So everything except for grocery stores and pharmacies and stuff like that will be shut down. So they're issuing like a shelter in place, or they're calling it like a stay at home, but same thing. So
Gotcha. Do you have anybody or know anybody that's been affected or has the disease?
No, not yet. I mean, no one that we know of. I think that's kind of the scary thing, is that a lot of people are kind of carrying it without knowing. So
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things, in a couple weeks we're going to know a lot more. And I also think I don't know how it is out there on the West Coast. I know like Seattle and some other places have been getting hit pretty hard, but here in Ohio, I think there's still a lot of people that are really in disbelief about it, and I think they will be until they know someone that's sick or someone that has been affected, So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. How's your just your family dynamic and everything? Like, you guys handling it well? Are you buying into the fear? I mean,
yeah. Obviously there's always a concern, but at the same time, you can't live your life in fear.
Yeah.
But I think it also makes sense to, take precautions. But even, 3 or 4 days, my wife and I, we have 2 young children, a first grader and a third grader. And we even made the decision, 3 or 4 days before they shut down the schools here. I could kind of see where it was going. I said, you know what? They have spring break coming up in a week anyway. Let's just keep our kids home and kind of see what happens. And so we kept them out of school. And then like 2 or 3 days later, they ended up shutting down the schools anyway. So luckily, though, me and my wife get along great.
Yeah.
Our kids get along great, so we're having fun.
Yeah.
We were just saying today, like I couldn't imagine like if I was in like a bad marriage or if I hated my kids, like being stuck at home with them 24 hours a day.
Yeah, that would suck.
Yeah, so I think there's going to be a lot of people that'll be filing for divorce when this is all said and done.
I hope not, man. That would suck.
No, I hope not. And hopefully this kind of renewed closeness will force people to kind of remember and the things that they once liked about each other and kind of get back to the basics of human interaction. But it could backfire in some cases, I'm sure.
I'm 100% sure there's going to be some people that have to distance themselves. I was
right.
Yesterday I was like, we've been doing church online and all the coffee shops are closed, and I just graduated college, so I'm trying, working on the YouTube stuff. I got a lot more time to edit and all that. And I'm like, dude, all my coffee shops are closed. Like, you can't do anything. You can't go anywhere. It's
right.
You're just like cooped up. I mean, I try to get out as much as possible, go sit outside or something, but just being cooped up, man, it's like, I think at the end of this, people are really going to value like human interaction more as opposed to less.
Absolutely. And I think, I tweeted something a week or two ago, and I said, you know what, this will all eventually, blow over. I mean, things will change, and there'll probably be some ramifications, but for the most part, life here in the U.S. will go on as somewhat normal, or whatever our new normal is.
Yeah.
And there's many people around the world that are not that lucky. I mean, just imagine if you live in Afghanistan or Syria or Iraq, some of these places that have just kind of perpetual, tension and, war and poverty and all these things, so really, I think makes you appreciate the fact that, like you said, on any normal day, you can go work from a coffee shop. You can kind of pretty much move throughout your day without any real worries than, whatever the normal worries are. So I think just maybe a renewed sense of appreciation, not just for interaction, but for how well we really do have it here in America.
Yeah. Man, what did you think about them just canceling all the events, all the NCAAs, everything? I mean, that was, how are yeah.
Obviously I have a, very, vested interest in seeing those things go on.
Yeah.
I have guys that I've worked with for years, Colin Moore, a great friend of mine who I've, worked with from the time he stepped foot on campus all the way up through, and, to see him not get his chance as a senior is, pretty heartbreaking. But at the same time, I think it was a necessary step. I mean, I would like to see them postponed as opposed to canceled. And, and the same thing even at the state level. Our state tournament here in Ohio was canceled. And, I work with a lot of, high school athletes. Some of them, I have one kid that as a senior now qualified for the state tournament. He's ranked, top 4 in the state, and he had never qualified before. And, all 4 of his brothers and his father were all state placers, so there's a million stories out there like that. So my heart's broken for Joey Petrella, but I just hope that once things have settled down, that they'll find some way to like host these events. And I don't know what the solution is, whether you hold the state tournament in the summer and give everyone £5 or whatever, but the bracket's already set. We already know who qualified.
Yeah.
And I know there's been a lot of debate online about whether, everyone should get, in the NCAA, everyone should get an extra year or whether, whatever. I don't really think that's the right move.
That's a tough sell because you got to do it. I mean, the guys coming in, I mean, that's going to screw up the seniors.
That would totally disrupt, the depth chart going forward for all these teams.
Yeah.
What if you have a kid that was coming in expecting the red shirt and he's behind a junior? Now that junior gets another year of eligibility. Now he's going to redshirt and then essentially lose a year. I think the right move, and I don't know when or where they do it, but I think the right move is just to hold the NCAA tournament at a later date. So
how do they remedy that if they've used the word cancel? I mean, can they go back and say, hey, because I mean, and obviously we're wrestlers, but basketball, every spring sport now has been canceled. Baseball, like, what do you?
Well,
I feel like they should have used the word postpone, had a date set, let's say June or something, and then if we get to June and it's not looking good, postpone it a little bit more, and then I just feel like cancel was not the right way to go about it.
I can understand why they did that with spring sports, because you could see like, all right, the season hasn't even started yet. We see the trajectory of where this is going. So we're just going to have to call this season a wash. And then maybe for all the spring athletes, I agree, give them all another year of eligibility, for baseball, for track and fields, because they haven't even got to really set foot in the competition arena. I think for wrestling, we only had one tournament left. We already know who was there. The brackets were already set. So I think the right move there would have been to postpone. Again, I'm just a weightlifting guy. I make no decisions or have any input, but that's what I think. I think, just canceling the NCAAs was the wrong move, but we'll see.
Yeah, I hope there's a way to rectify that, and I really hope the Olympics doesn't get canceled. That would be, I don't even know what you would do there.
Yeah, it's crazy, but again, I mean, the fact that we're really focused on these sports because you're immersed in the wrestling world, I'm immersed in the wrestling world. It's very important to us, but at the end of the day, the health and survival of our communities and the elderly and all these things are much more important. So we'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I think at times like this, you really find out like what's truly important. Like if you lose wrestling, that's not the end of your life. That's not the end of your existence. You still have a purpose beyond that, and so I think it's a good time for guys to see that and realize that, and that's a good opportunity, I think, too. But within that,
absolutely. I'll tell you, we the day we when the governor came out with the mandate to close gyms, and I think it was gyms and tattoo parlors or gyms, he kind of grouped us into like an early thing. And so we announced, to our members that we were going to be shutting the doors. And I, was approached by one member and said, I've talked to so and so, and they said there's no way for them to enforce this. And my cousin in Pittsburgh, said the gym's there staying open, and the cops aren't doing anything about it. And I looked at it, I said, well, that's great, but that's really irresponsible. Like if me closing my gym is going to help, someone's grandmother in the community not, potentially not catch this virus and not die from pneumonia, then closing my gym is 100% worth it. So I think people really just need to focus on the big picture here, and we'll be better off when we get to the other side of it.
So is that your full-time job now, is running that gym?
I mean, I guess technically yes, but I don't spend all day at the gym, so I kind of have a lot of different things that are all connected to working out. So I have the physical location, the old school gym. Mm-hmm. We've been in business since 2003. Myself and Corey G, my best friend from high school, we own that together.
Okay.
I'm the strength coach at the Ohio Regional Training Center at Ohio State, which might be where you know me from. As far as working with the wrestlers down there and the wrestling program at Ohio State. Then we also own, myself, Corey G, and a few other guys. We own a supplement company called Max Separate Muscle. I'm kind of in charge of doing content creation for that. And then I have ebooks and online programs, online stuff that I sell, and I do a lot of content for Flow Wrestling and some of the other websites, stuff like that. So everything's kind of connected to the gym. That's like the home base. But I think when people think of a gym owner, they think of what I used to do 10, 15 years ago, which was I was in the gym from sun up to sundown and had to run every aspect of it. Now, up until the shutdown, I was in there for a few hours every day, maybe working with some athletes and overseeing some things, but wasn't quite the gym owner grind that I was on before, the big social media boom. So
gotcha. Has this been a good opportunity for you, just with like social media and stuff, like being able to create content and provide that? And obviously your skill set is pretty suited for this kind of thing.
You're talking about social media in general, or the kind of the shutdown right now, or whatever?
Like, has the shutdown helped you with that part of the business?
I wouldn't say that it's helped me, but I would say it's kind of forced me to, become more creative and try to say like, okay, how can I create some value for, athletes that are at home that don't have the normal guidance of their coaches. They don't have the normal facilities that they have access to. I mean, I actually just released a, 5-week at-home strength program for wrestlers where they don't need any equipment and they can kind of, and I had to get creative and think, okay, how can we still, develop our grip and, our posterior chain and, do these things besides just sitting in your room and doing push-ups every day, which anyone can think of that, right? Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's forced me to be creative. It's definitely hasn't helped my business per se because, like I said, my gym's closed. Yeah. Some people are not buying supplements like they were, and things like that. So,
for anybody that's listening, what's that program called, and how can people find it?
Yeah, so it's called Strength Conditioning for Wrestling, which has been my whole series is called that, and I have in season, off season, preseason, youth, all that stuff. But this is one that's called simply the Home Workout Edition, and you can get that on oldschooljim.com, or you link to either my Facebook or my Instagram page. My Instagram page is @CoachMyers_gutcheck, and they'll be able to find it anywhere through there.
Gotcha. Very cool. Yeah, because I mean that would be value for people. It doesn't have to just be wrestlers, right? A lot of people could find, especially right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone that wants to do a structured workout plan at home, it's going to be perfect for. Absolutely.
Gotcha. So how did you get in? How did you get into strength training, and what made you want to be a coach? And first of all, I'm having a hard time calling you Dustin. I feel like you're Coach Myers. Like that's
no. Just go with Coach Myers. I mean, even the kids at the gym just call me Coach. So
all right, we've never met, but I'll call you Coach Myers.
Yeah, that's fine, man. Whatever feels more natural to you. No, so I mean that was kind of a multi-tiered question you asked there, but as far as just my backgrounds and strength training, when I get I'm 40, almost 41 years old. I was when I grew up, as a kid, like in the early 80s, my dad had the house I grew up in out in the country. We had an old detached garage, and he had a bunch of weights in there, and he had the squat rack. He a buddy of his had made it in the steel mill where he worked. Welded it together with some scrap metal and basically everything in it except for a few of the dumbbells were homemade. Even some of the plates were actually homemade from rolls of steel that they had at the mill.
Oh wow!
And he had coached, he coached football at the time, And, back then, this is the 80s, these small rural schools, they'd never even heard of a strength coach. No one even knew what that was.
Yeah, yeah.
But he would, for his athletes in the summertime, they would come down and work out at our house. So some of my earliest memories of being, 4, 5, 6 years old, I was running around, out there in the garage while these high school kids were out there lifting weights. And my dad was essentially their trainer, even though we didn't really call it that. He was just helping them, lift weights.
Mm-hmm.
He had a pumping iron book from Arnold and stuff like that. So that's really what I grew up around. There was just kind of a culture of, he went to the mill, he came home, he worked out in the garage. It didn't matter whether it was summertime or whether it was, 10 below in the middle of February. That's just what he did. And I started, lifting weights with him when I was 12 years old. And then that just kind of, was really my first love, sports wise. I got into wrestling once I got into high school, but I was kind of a weightlifter first. And then, not to kind of jump around, but then once I got into college, one of my best friends from high school, we'd grown up, working out together, Corey Gregory. He started his own training studio. When I was still at Ohio State, I graduated in 2002, started working for him. And then a year later, we ended up buying an older gym that went out of business. And, that became the first old school gym.
Okay.
And we opened that in 2003. So just been kind of in the gym business ever since.
Gotcha. Now, where'd you wrestle at college at?
So I didn't wrestle in college. I wrestled in high school, and that was it.
Okay. And then,
Yeah. So I went to. I get that question a lot, actually.
Okay.
So people know that I went to Ohio State, but I never wrestled at Ohio State. Did some kind of wrestling and scrapping in the bars back in the early 2000s, late 90s, but that probably wouldn't count for much. But
everybody's done that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
we had our MMA, or the owner of American Top Team, come out the other day and speak to our team. But this is like the guy, I'm going to do MMA. So he's like my gym owner. And he's like, yeah, man, wrestlers been going to bars and beating up football players since the dawn of time. Like, it's just one of those things. I was like, why are we known for that? It's horrible.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, back and I wasn't a great wrestler. I started wrestling, kind of late in high school. And I was basically I was already a weightlifter, so I was kind of a meathead. I was just a strength guy, body locks and knee picks and, stuff like that. But I can remember being in college, and at the time, MMA hadn't really taken off yet. There was kind of the early days watching the Gray stuff. But at that time, even if you were an average wrestler like myself, you had a huge advantage over the typical guy that would try to start a fight with you at a bar. Well, now everyone thinks they know a little bit of jiu-jitsu. Everyone's taking Muay Thai classes online and stuff. I think that, maybe the playing field has evened out a little bit. I don't know. So either way, I'm too old to be getting in bar fights. So that's kind of the furthest thing from my, whatever there.
Yeah, no. Well, that's good. That's commendable. Okay. So you wrestled in high school. So now is your role still the same at Ohio State? You've been the RTC strength coach. They work out with you, or has that changed? Did you used to be their official strength coach, or how is that?
Yeah, so it's kind of evolved over the years. So I'll kind of tell you how I first got involved with Ohio State. I'll kind of go through that. So, having a wrestling background, then once I opened my gym and, I did a lot of personal training early on. I was essentially a full-time personal trainer. But I started training maybe some high school wrestlers, just kind of locally. This would have been like in maybe the, 2006, 2008, 2010, like around that time.
Yeah.
And I think even though I'd only wrestled in high school, I think just having the background in wrestling kind of helped me understand the strength demands of it a little bit more than, your typical, personal trainer somewhere that had never, stepped foot on the mat. So
sure.
I think it was maybe 2010, I ended up meeting Tommy Rollins, through a mutual business contact. And at that time, even though I hadn't wrestled at my time at Ohio State, I was still a huge wrestling fan. So I remember going to the duels and watching Tommy Rollins, and he was like a larger than life figure in the wrestling world here in Ohio. You know, and so when I finally met him, at the time he was working. He would in 2008 he'd been an Olympic trials runner-up, and then he kind of retired after that. He lost to Mako in the trials, and he kind of went into the business world. And I met him in 2010, and he said, "You know what, man?" He said, "I'm thinking about making a comeback and trying to make the team in 2012." He's like, "But I've been on the couch for 2 years." And the way he described, he was one of those guys that he, strength training and stuff, he did it because he had to, but it was never really his thing. So he didn't really understand it maybe the same way someone would that was really into it, like a Nathan Tomasello or a Bo Jordan, someone like that loves to lift weights. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, this is like a golden opportunity. And I just said, hey man, let me help you. you know? And he was like, all right. So he lived in Hilliard at the time. It's about, 45 minutes from my gym. And he started training with me, 3 days a week. He would drive out from Hilliard to my gym in Pataskla. And I just kind of helped him pro bono. And I, really didn't know where it was going to go other than I looked at it as like, man, this is my first opportunity to really work with an elite athlete, someone that I had already kind of like idolized in a way in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And so we worked really hard. He kind of, made his comeback, had some good international success, and then, went through the whole trials process. And even we dropped him down to 97 kilos. He ended up losing again in the Olympic trial finals, this time to Jake Varner, who then went on to win Olympic gold in 2012. So one of those things, very, very close. But when it was all said and done, I mean, he reached out to me, after that summer, and he said, hey, man, he said, I really appreciate everything you did to help me. I think, I couldn't have been more prepared. You were a huge help. And we have some guys down here at the regional training center that could use your help. Would you be interested in volunteering? I said, yeah, absolutely. So I went down and I met, Coach Lou Roselli. And at the time it was Reese Humphrey, Angel Escobedo, Keith Gavin. It was kind of a small group of them right then. And I went down and started, volunteering and working with those guys down there. And I think the way I kind of caught Coach Ryan's eye was I looked at it as not just an opportunity for me to work with these athletes. I was like, you know what? Like, these guys are some of the strongest, pound for pound, most fit, badass guys on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
I actually want to work out with them.
Yeah.
So I would actually train side by side with them. And, it was almost like, it's kind of a joke, me and Reese, we came really close over the years. We said those early days, it was really just like a contest to see like who was going to break first, who was going to almost die on the treadmill or whatever circuit we were doing or whatever.
Yeah.
That was in 2012. I started working with the RTC and then kind of took over the role as the coach for the senior level athletes. And then I think after about maybe a year and a half there, Tom Ryan kind of changed my role where he started kind of using my role as the RTC coach to train the entire team. And I worked with the entire team from maybe 2013 or 2014 through 2018. So I kind of served as the de facto Ohio State strength coach, but just through the regional training center. And then after the 2018 season, they created a full-time position for that, which I was not really interested in because then I would need to be there full-time rather than just in the mornings. I'd have to kind of give up my gym business, my supplement business, and all these other things. So at that time I stepped away, and now I just work exclusively with the senior level athletes again.
Awesome. That's a cool story, man.
Thanks, man.
Are you responsible for Highlight Humphrey then? Did you teach him everything he knows?
So I wish I could say that I, taught him all those crazy backflips and, helped build that athleticism, but he is truly, an absolute freak of nature, one of the most athletically gifted individuals I've ever met in my life. I'm going to say though that I definitely helped him strength wise. He wasn't really a big weightlifter before I met him. So definitely was able to help him there. Sometimes he had to move up. We moved back down. He kind of bounced between 60. Well, I think it was 60 and 65 at the time. Then it was 60 and 61 or whatever. But so we had a lot of fun training over the days. Me and Reese are still really tight, and he's doing great things in the coaching world now.
Dude, he's killing it, man. That NJRTC it's amazing. I mean, it's awesome what he's doing. That's why I want to ask. But you are a pretty creative guy as far as like your training methods and stuff. Is it like guys like Reese like that kind of help incorporate that, or is that really your own thing? Or I mean, because like some of the stuff that Flo's put out about you, and then just YouTube and everything, I saw you did a video for Muscle and Strength. Like, there's a lot of workouts that are very unconventional that seem to be more new, like new school stuff.
I think part of it is just because I've been doing this for so long.
Yeah.
Like I said, I started lifting weights when I was 12 years old, and I've never really stopped. And then just even on a professional level, I opened, my gym in 2003. I've been training clients and athletes ever since then. So it's just like anything, if you have a wrestling coach that's been coaching wrestling for 20 years, they're probably going to know their shit by that time, right? So kind of the same thing. And where, just over the years, I've been forced to get creative, but I think it's one of those things where you have to, I think, let me try to back up. I guess when you look at social media, there's so much out there, right? Mm-hmm. There's so much to pick from fitness wise. And I think it can be hard for certain people to decipher, like, well, is this something that just looks cool or is it actually helpful? And I think in my case, I try to put out things that aren't just going to be, look cool in a video, but they're actually rooted in science. They're rooted in my experience working with athletes. And so I think there can be a misconception when people hear, that something's sports specific. They think, well, for it to be sports specific in wrestling, they have to be, you have to do the movement while you're bent over in a wrestling stance. We still have to train in a general state. We have to build strength and power in a general standpoint and then adapt it to make it specific instead of the other way around, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Now, did you study kinesiology or anything in college, or is this all mostly experience-based?
So my original degree, my bachelor degree from OSU is in English. I was originally going to be an English teacher. So, which is kind of crazy now because after all these years, I'm actually using my degree to write, ebooks, and I write for Flow, Muscle and Strength, and all that stuff. But no, so I never studied kinesiology at the college level. I actually did go back. I had a regular, just a kind of run-of-the-mill personal training certification for years, but I just recently, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, went back and got my CSCS, which is kind of the highest certification you can get as a strength coach, and you have to have a bachelor degree to study for it and get it. So,
gotcha. Does that expire at all, or is it a full?
You just have to keep going continuing education every so many years.
Okay.
Which I think mine's coming up in December, so I have to get some accredited hours and whatever before then.
Gotcha. Well, the big reason I want to do this podcast was because, one, I find you I think you're a really interesting guy, but I feel like you are somebody that can add a lot of value to a lot of listeners, like, people listening at home, wondering like, okay, well, how do I stay in shape, or how do I get in possibly even better shape during this time? And I just was wondering, like, what is your approach, like on a more like systematic type, like how should people be training in this time? What can people be doing? Like, what exercises are you doing or having, like, is there like a pamphlet that you're sending like the guys, like, hey, this is what you need to be doing to stay in shape. This is what you can be doing to make gains, like, all this stuff.
Well, I think, kind of from the big bird's eye view, I think it's really important for anyone that's listening to remember when you get thrown out of your normal routine, the easy thing to do, and maybe, most people instinctively are just going to kind of shut it down. Like, go to practice, this sucks, I'm going to just sit on my phone all day, or, it creates a certain, sense of negativity. It's natural. I even felt that way at first. The day I closed my gym, I came home and was just kind of like moped around all day, so, but I think we have to look at situations like this as opportunities, right? We have to say, okay, we're going to make do with what we got, maybe change our focus. Like, all right, let's say that you're someone who's always been very strong. Now you don't have access to weights. You're at home. Now's the time to work on your flexibility, your mobility. We're going to work on injury prevention. There's so many different the great thing about training, about strength training in general, and just, fitness, is that you can never master it. You can never be the finished product. There is no finished product. So you got to look at, like, okay, what can I do with what I have? And, maybe you've never been a runner. Now's the time to take up running. We're allowed to go outside and get fresh air, start running every day, But no, I did put together an ebook, specifically for, home workouts. I, obviously branded it for wrestlers, but anyone could do it. And in it, I said, I had to look at, like, okay, we normally do, split squats, on our foot on the bench. I'm going to do it with my foot on the step. I'm going to use chairs to do glute bridges and, put a, like a broomstick across the chair so I can do like body weight rows and different things like that. So you got to get creative, and hey, if you're stuck at home all day, then work out 3 times a day. Maybe do your body weight stuff in the morning, do your injury, prehab based stuff in the afternoon, and then in the evening before the sun goes down, go for a jog,
Gotcha. Hey, when we're done with this, can you send me a link to your ebook? I'll put it in the description for the podcast and the channel. So
absolutely. I'll send you a copy of it too, so that way you get some ideas to use.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Is that the one with Tomasello on the cover?
That is my off-season edition.
Okay.
Yeah, so that one's geared to use. Obviously, you need a weight room to do that, but anyone who does have access to weights at home, the off-season ebook would cover basically from March to October of the off-season. It has all the different, I think it's 6 or 7 different phase program to really, pack on muscle, get stronger, and get ready for the season.
Gotcha. Okay, man. Well, one last question. I just wanted to ask, because I was curious myself. When did you like get your big break as far as like did you blow up overnight with social media, or was it more of a gradual thing? Because I remember like seeing one video of you and was like, "Oh, this guy's awesome," but I don't remember anything. No offense, but I don't remember anything before that. I don't know.
No, I appreciate that. I honestly, I mean, kind of going back to Reese, I think Reese and I, when we first started working out together in 2012, that was kind of right when Instagram came out. And I think, up to that point, I had, Facebook and a Twitter and stuff like that. But Instagram kind of became, at that time, it was only 15-second videos. Or no, it was actually only pictures at first, I think. And then,
Sounds
but
right.
that kind of became the perfect vehicle for us to kind of showcase the stuff that he and I were doing down at the regional training center. And so it kind of became a thing where we would finish the workout, be like, all right, let's try to think of some crazy core trick we can do or whatever. And that was when both of us, our Instagram pages started taking off because we were, putting out stuff that was challenging. Wrestlers always like to be challenged and try something new. And then also too, I started like posting the workouts we were doing, so I was kind of teaching other coaches and things like that. And I would say that was the beginning of it. And then, this could be something that your listeners could take away from, not just fitness related, not just coaching related, but anytime you're in business, if you really just focus on bringing value to people and helping people, then your business is going to take off. And so that was something I really did, from the beginning, whether we're talking about how I helped Tommy or helped Reese and those guys, or even the content I put out was, I'm not just going to post a video every day of, my butt while I'm doing squats or pictures of me flexing. Yeah, I mean, maybe you got to sprinkle that stuff in every once in a while, but for the most part, I'm trying to bring value to people. I'm trying to help people.
Yeah.
And I don't know what your business is. It doesn't have to be fitness. If you focus on helping people, and if that is really your, kind of foremost priority, then you're going to do well, and you're going to be successful, and you're going to make money. And that's just really how the world works. So I think, Reese and I doing crazy core tricks back in the day, that was kind of the beginning of it. But again, we were focusing on, bringing some value to people.
Awesome. Awesome, man. Well, hey, Dustin, I really appreciate you being on here. I appreciate everything you do, man. Keep popping out the content. It's awesome, especially, during all this stuff where you have a little bit more time to do it. But, dude, take care of the family. Have a great time. Enjoy everything, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks, brother. Be safe out there.
See you, buddy. Bye.
Yep.